Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Nous sommes ravis de vous accueillir à notre webinaire sur la thématique « Pourquoi choisir le Quatrefolic quatrième génération de folates ?» organisé en partenariat avec Gnosis by Lesaffre. Je vous propose de patienter un petit peu quelques minutes, quelques instants, afin que tous les participants se connectent. Bonjour aux dernières personnes qui viennent de se connecter. Je propose qu'on patiente quelques instants afin que tout le monde puisse arriver sur notre webinaire avant de démarrer. Écoutez, je ne vais pas vous faire patienter plus longtemps. On va démarrer et puis les personnes, de toute façon, auront accès au replay. Tout d'abord, je vous propose de vous présenter les différents interlocuteurs qui interviendront au cours du webinaire. Nous avons la chance d'avoir avec nous le professeur Luca Tiano, qui abordera tous les aspects techniques et scientifiques du Quatrefolic. Et présente également Lorena Carboni, Market Manager chez Gnosis by Lesaffre, qui répondra à vos questions lors de la session Q&A, questions-réponses. Frédéric Cardinal, Sales Manager de chez Gnosis by Lesaffre. Et pour finir, je me présente, je suis Sandrine Alloire, chef produit au sein de la société Unipex. Nous allons démarrer par une présentation de nos deux sociétés. Ensuite, nous présenterons les caractéristiques du Quatrefolic et on continuera avec le professeur Luca Tiano. Je vous invite à poser toutes vos questions dans le chat qui se trouve à la droite de votre écran et nous y répondrons à la fin de la présentation lors de la session questions-réponses. Démarrons avec Unipex. Nous sommes une société de distribution d'ingrédients de spécialité qui a été créée il y a plus de 50 ans et vous avez peut-être vu la communication au sujet du rachat d'Unipex par le groupe Barents. Unipex est un acteur sur plusieurs marchés qui sont la cosmétique, la chimie, l'alimentaire, l'industrie pharmaceutique et nutraceutique. Notre siège est basé à Paris La Défense et nous sommes présents sur le marché français, le Benelux ainsi que le Maghreb. Nous collaborons avec des commettants basés sur différents continents et pour certains depuis la création d'Unipex. Fort de notre savoir-faire pharmaceutique, nous avons développé notre offre nutraceutique dans une démarche de prévention santé afin de soutenir nos clients dans leurs projets. En lien avec notre engagement pour le développement durable, nous sélectionnons de façon rigoureuse nos commettants afin qu'ils répondent à nos critères réglementaires, qualité et techniques. Notre gamme Nutra intègre des ingrédients innovants tels que des extraits naturels ou des molécules actives qui sont adaptés pour vos formulations et répondent aux tendances du marché nutraceutique. À présent, je laisse Frédéric vous présenter la société Gnosis by Lesaffre.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous et merci pour votre participation à ce webinaire sur Quatrefolic, le folate de quatrième génération. Gnosis by Lesaffre est l'entité du groupe Lesaffre qui est dédiée à la santé, la nutrition santé humaine et au bien-être en général. Comme vous pouvez le voir sur cette slide, le groupe Lesaffre est un groupe avec plusieurs entités et plusieurs business units. Le cœur du savoir-faire du groupe Lesaffre étant la panification, tout ce qui est levure pour la panification. Mais comme vous pouvez le voir, il y a beaucoup d'autres spécialités au sein du groupe Lesaffre, notamment tout ce qui est food taste and pleasure, notamment avec Fermentis pour les boissons alcoolisées, Biospringé pour tout ce qui est exhausteur de goût, Enolis notamment pour la vanilline. Vous avez également l'industrie biotechnologie avec LIS pour tout ce qui est séchage, atomisation, Procelis pour le substrat de fermentation, LIF pour le biocarburant, et enfin le healthcare, notamment avec Gnosis by Lesaffre que nous représentons aujourd'hui, avec Agroxine pour tout ce qui est culture et agriculture, Philéo pour la nutrition santé animale, et Gnosis by Lesaffre pour la nutrition santé humaine. Quelques chiffres pour vous indiquer qui nous sommes. Gnosis by Lesaffre donc, est représenté à travers le monde avec plusieurs localisations. Lesaffre est entré dans la nutrition santé humaine en 2007, puis avec l'acquisition de Nato Pharma, donc notre vitamine K2, a étendu son portefeuille d'ingrédients en 2021. Nous sommes 400 employés répartis à travers le monde et nous proposons 3 solutions principales, c'est-à-dire les probiotiques, les levures nutritionnelles et les ingrédients bioactifs. Et nous répondons aux besoins de nos consommateurs et de nos consommatrices sur 5 segments clés de marché, à savoir tout ce qui est santé digestive, santé de la femme, la santé articulaire et la mobilité, tout ce qui est bien-être général et la santé immunitaire, et la santé cognitive et l'humeur. Notre mission, c'est d'utiliser, de profiter ce que nous donne la nature, c'est-à-dire tous les micro-organismes et les process de biotransformation pour cultiver ces micro-organismes au bénéfice de nos consommateurs et de nos consommatrices pour leur bien-être en général. Vous voyez ici l'étendue du portefeuille de Gnosis by Lesaffre. Comme je vous le disais, donc, tout ce qui est levure nutritionnelle sur la partie gauche de la slide. Les probiotiques que nous proposons sur différentes souches, les probiotiques levures aux probiotiques bactéries, et enfin les ingrédients bioactifs comme Quatrefolic que nous allons vous présenter aujourd'hui.
Merci beaucoup Frédéric. Nous allons à présent faire un zoom sur l'acide folique versus le folate. Quelle est la différence entre acide folique et folate? Sous le terme de la vitamine B9, on retrouve les folates et l'acide folique. À la différence de l'acide folique, les folates sont la forme naturelle de la vitamine B9 présente dans l'alimentation. L'acide folique est quant à lui synthétique. On retrouve le plus souvent de l'acide folique dans les suppléments vitaminiques et les aliments enrichis n'ont pas de folate. Pardon. Il doit être converti de l'acide folique en méthyltétrahydrofolate, 5-MTHF, afin de pouvoir être utilisé dans l'organisme. Qu'est-ce que le folate? Le folate joue un rôle essentiel dans la division cellulaire et la synthèse de l'ADN, dans la croissance et le développement de l'être humain. Le folate est naturellement présent dans les aliments, mais n'est pas stable. Par exemple, on perd 70% de leur activité pour des aliments conservés à température ambiante. Et avec un processus de cuisson, on peut aller jusqu'à une perte de 95%. À présent, je vais laisser la parole au professeur Luca Tiano. I will now let Professor Luca Tiano introduce Quatrefolic and explain why this ingredient is so exceptional. Professeur Luca Tiano. Do you hear us? Okay. Yes. Professeur Luca Tiano ne va pas laisser sa caméra pour des raisons de problèmes de connexion et pour avoir une meilleure, pour mieux l'entendre, il il va laisser son micro et couper la caméra. You can start, Professor Lucatiano. Thank you very much. Malheureusement, je crains qu'on ait un problème de connexion.
Lorena, perhaps you can take the lead.
Yes, hello, I'm Lorena Carboni. I'm from the marketing department of Gnosis by Lesaffre. I'm supporting Professor Tiano. I'm the scientific communication specialist for this product. So while Luca is trying to connect again, I'll start the presentation in order to give you all the information about Quatrefolic. So just I'm starting to go with the presentation. So Quatrefolic is first of all part of the folate family. Is a mandatory vitamin, the vitamin B9. It is recommended during pregnancy and more or less worldwide. In some countries, there is fortification in place in order to cover all the needs of the people, especially to protect pregnancy and so women that can be pregnant without knowing. Today, folic acid can be considered, let me say, old-fashioned due to the fact that new form of folate, like active folate, 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate, are in the market with important advantages, both in terms of activities and safe aspects. In these last years, new benefits are becoming important, and the science on folate and on the part of this vitamin in our health is just is even more important. What about the market of supplements on folate? In the graphic that you can see on the left, you can see how the market perceives differently vitamin B9 and active folate. Even if both numbers of supplements have been launched in the last years, both with the B9, so general indication of folate, and active folate, the trend for active folate is extremely higher, with the plus 75% CAGR 2017-2021. So it means that the market is receive the importance of active folate, and also companies try to play more on this kind of concept that is appealing, but also is science covered by this new science that is publishing, that the community is publishing on folate. And according to that, you can also see how the different segments are on this active folate. For example, there are general basket of vitamins and minerals, 55%, women's specialties around 16%, and interesting also some other segments that are present. Why this interest on active folate? It's just a trend, or it is a real need? What the science today highlight is that not all people have the right level of folate, just using folic acid. This depends on the fact that folic acid is not naturally present in our body, is just a synthetic version, an oxidated form of folate that was developed in order to guarantee a source of vitamin B9 to the people. Folic acid needs to be metabolized, to be transformed. This transformation happens through a specific enzyme pathways, where a specific enzyme that is named methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase has a role. And specifically, this enzyme can be polymorphic. So it means that has a form that is not normal and can impact the capacity of the body to transform folic acid in the active folate. This polymorphism can be especially critical for women and partially part of health issues. The interest on this polymorphism is extremely highlighted by the numbers of publications that today are present on polymorphism of this enzyme. So more than 5,000 different publications on that. But what about the differences, how these pathways can impact the transformation of folate? Here on the right, you can see the transformation of folic acid, but also of dietary folates, the folate form that we found in vegetables, in green vegetables, and how all these forms are transformed in the active form, namely 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate is also the part of the quatrefolic that, in order to be utilized as a supplement, has been solidified with glucosamine salt. So how you can see folic acid is, first of all, synthetically derived, needs to be transformed in more than one steps, especially during the first transformation. Unmetabolized folic acid can appear on the plasma if this transformation is not enough, so the enzyme doesn't work in the proper way, and the methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase is present in the last part of the transformation. Also, dietary folate present in the vegetables needs to be transformed in this 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate, and so undergoes the same problems of polymorphism if it is present. So some other information: folate are naturally unstable. For that, folic acid was synthesized and offered on the market. It is very old molecule, folic acid, synthesized in 1945, more stable for sure of natural form of folate, but not active. So even if the 70 years of, let me say, science on supplementation of folate is on folic acid, today we are in a new era where, fortunately, we can be able to differentiate the different forms and how these forms works in our body. I mentioned the unmetabolized folic acid, that is practically the untransformed form that we can detect in the blood. This unmetabolized folic acid appears on the plasma even at low dosage of supplementation. So practically for just a daily dosage of 200 micrograms, that is half of the daily dosage that we need, folic acid in unmetabolized form appears on the plasma. Considering that in different countries we are exposed to folic acid, because folic acid is added in different kind of foods. In some countries there is also fortification. This is even more a problem, because it means that the general population can have these levels of unmetabolized folic acid in the blood. And what is the problems of this molecule? The problems is that can be present some side effects that today are under studies. The polymorphism of methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, how we can explain that? Any kind of enzyme is produced by our body, starting from a genetic information that is present on our DNA. When a polymorphism is present, there were like a puntiform modification on the DNA that can impact on the production of the enzyme in terms of structure of the enzyme. It is nice, this representation of the melodies. It means that, for example, our DNA code is like a melody, is made up of different notes, and if there is just one modification of this like a melody, we can here we can maybe not so strong, but we can feel these differences. So the polymorphism is something that works in the same way. It means that the enzyme is produced, but is not able to work in an efficient way as the normal copy. How this polymorphism is frequent in the population? It depends on the kind of polymorphism present. Today, there are a different kind of polymorphism in our population, and the more important and impacting are described in this slide, so named 677 and 1298, where the numbers stands for the kind of nucleotides present and the transformation present with the polymorphism. The presence of these polymorphism impact differently the enzyme activities of the enzyme, and according to the fact that this polymorphism is present in just one copy of the chromosome or in both copies, the impact can be different. What is important for us is to see and to understand that people with this polymorphism, even if it can transform folic acid, that cannot maybe have the proper level of folate according to the different situation that we live. So sometimes, even if the supplementation of folic acid is present, people cannot have the right level to counteract what is going on our body. The frequency of this polymorphism differs in terms of countries. For example, is very high in Hispanics or in the southeast part of Europe, and less practically in Black people like Africans and Native Americans. It depends on the selection of the different race and according to the availability of, let me say, folate in ancient age. How this polymorphism can impact on the metabolism and on the cell life. Here in this slide, we can, for example, highlight how quatrefolic or methylfolate, so the active form of folate, enters the one-carbon metabolism. One-carbon metabolism is extremely important pathways that we have in our cell that allows the production of, for example, SAMe. So these are specific molecules that is able to donor methyl groups and to methylate important molecules in our body, and are specifically involved in a lot of live activities of the cells, production of neurotransmitters, DNA and RNA methylation. So it's really based for the life of the cell. And in this cell, what is interesting to highlight is how a specific molecule named homocysteine, that is a recognized risk factor for cardiovascular disease, can be can pile up on our blood according to the reduced activities of one carbon metabolism due to the deficiency of folate. Homocysteine can be transformed through methylation in methionine and later start again the one carbon metabolism, or transformed in glutathione through the cysteine pathways in presence of vitamin B6. So these extremely important molecules, but cannot be higher than what in safe level, because otherwise can impact on our vascular system, for example, through increase of radicals production, with injuries and damages of these structures that determines, for example, different kind of problems, starting from, for example, pregnancy complication, atherosclerosis, problems in cardiovascular system in general. So it's extremely important to have the right level of folate in order to provide folate to this cycle and to allow homocysteine to work properly. Quatrefolic and homocysteine has a direct role. Quatrefolic was tested in comparison to folic acid at dosage of 400 microgram with other vitamins like B6 and B12 in order to understand how this folate, active folate, can normalize the level of homocysteine in our body. What was interesting to know was that a low level of quatrefolic, so daily dosage, we can say 400 microgram, were tested versus 5 milligram of folic acid. So very high dosage of folic acid normally used when there is some problems in these pathways. And the normalization of this homocysteine was reached by quatrefolic, reaching levels of 10 micromoles liters. That is practically the normal and the right levels, more than folic acid, and in 57% of the cases. So demonstrating has the active form of folate can be more suitable for the body to work properly. But folate and unmetabolized folic acid can have some different effect. For example, this is another important problems, can impact on, for example, cognitive decline and anemia in the elderly. And for that, it is extremely important to reduce the level of unmetabolized folic acid in order to maintain safe the folate pathways. Some studies highlight, for example, that unmetabolized folic acid reduced the natural killer cytotoxicity. Natural killer is a specific group of cells involved in the control of the cells that works not properly, including the cancer cells. So you can imagine how the reduction of this capacity can be potentially involved also in the cancer management. Anyway, unmetabolized folic acid has an impact of the immune system and also on food allergies, and due to this exposure of mothers during the pregnancy of high levels of unmetabolized folic acid. All this information opens to a wide application of quatrefolic as active folate. In this part, we can see together let me say, the most important features on quatrefolic. If Luca is like ready to come again, I'll leave the floor just to say but I will continue waiting for him if we can resolve the issues. Otherwise, we can manage with me. So for the Quatrefolic application, the first one, the most important and known is clearly the pregnancy, where due to the fact that folate is required for the cell growth and reproduction, and so for the creation of the new entity or the new baby, so supporting fetus and embryo or development. Folate has a direct link with the neural tube defect that is an important problems of that happens in the first 2 months of the pregnancy, where women do not know that they are in pregnancy, and so the less availability of folate can impact on the capacity, the proper capacity to create the cell structures, and the result is the enclosure of the spinal cord, and with different grade of malformation. Folate deficiency can be clearly covered by the supplementation of folate. So active folate is suggested because can act on 100% of people and women independently of the polymorphism of the enzyme that works in the metabolization. In the pregnancy, also homocysteine can have a problem, and for that, clearly maintaining a right level of homocysteine in the blood can be suitable to maintain also health pregnancy and to avoid different problems like, for example, embryolosis, but also preeclampsia and other problems that are present in pregnancy. On pregnancy, another important aspect is the anemia. The prevalence among pregnant women is very high, is 37% globally, while in non-pregnant women we can stay at more or less 30%. What is interesting to know is that there is like a synergy between folate and iron in order to cover and to resolve anemia problems, because iron clearly is suitable for the right production of hemoglobin, and so for the transport of the oxygen in all the tissues and cells, while folate clearly support the production of right red blood cells, and so the normal shape and the normal function of this cell population. So both support the right blood oxygenation, and so support pregnancy. Interesting to know that supplementation of iron and folate together versus placebo or no supplementation during pregnancy result in a reduced maternal anemia by 69%, reduced risk of premature birth, and also greater mean birth weight. So it is interesting to play and to propose supplements that can have, for example, this important duo and Quatrefolic. Different kind of iron are today present. There are also a specific let me say, publication in that report a good effect of Quatrefolic and, for example, a micronized form of iron in pregnant women. And what about the fertility? Clearly, the right production of cells, it's also right production, I mean proper cell development of sexual cell, both in women than in men. And so folate and homocysteine status are critical factor for this early stage of human reproduction, so supporting both female and man cell productions. Clearly, also in this case, folate has to be in the active form to act and to support the cell metabolism, and can be impacted by polymorphism and homocysteine. Periconceptional folate supplementation increase, for example, the success of natural pregnancy, but also the success after assisted reproductive technology treatment. For example, in these trials that was carried out with Quatrefolic with the 600 microgram plus B components and zinc, a population with polymorphism was studied in order to understand how homocysteine can impact the success of pregnancy. So the population was divided in people with just homozygous, so it means both chromosome with the mutation and the heterozygous, so just one copy. And the treatment was with Quatrefolic was able to normalize the homocysteine levels that we can see on the left, reporting to the normal basal level that is around 10 micromole liters, and according to that, there were an increase in numbers of fertility, of pregnancy of this population. Another interesting trials carried out was on infertility couples that for at least 4 years were unable to have a baby, and this population was clearly divided also for polymorphism, with the wild type people, so without any polymorphism, of 38%, 45% with heterozygous, and 17% with homozygous version. Quatrefolic was in this case supplemented at 800 microgram, and the very interesting result was that of 33 couples, 13 had spontaneous pregnancies after the treatment, and 13 pregnancy was achieved after assisted reproductive technologies. What can be the comments on these studies? That sometimes if the supplementation of folate happens without the proper level, so without covering the real needs of a specific person, there can be the problems of right folate levels, and so the problems of infertility, for example, can in this case remain without solution. What about the homocysteine and on cardiovascular in general? So how folate can, for example, can be suitable and helpful for elderly? This is another important target of folate application. Hyperhomocysteinemia, so high level of homocysteine, it is higher than 15 micromole liters, is a specific recognized risk factor for cardiovascular disease, and it is responsible for the 10% of the total risk of atherothrombotic vascular disease. Here there is some very, let me say, synthetic explanation of the action of homocysteine in our body when it is piled up on the cells due to this impairment of one carbon metabolism and on folate availability. Homocysteine can damage the cell through indirect and direct mechanism. Indirect mechanism through, for example, the unavailability of methylation for DNA, and so that impact, for example, also the cell function. The lipid peroxidation, so damage on the wall cell of the cells, and finally opening to atherosclerosis, but also through direct mechanism, so production of free reactive oxygen species that can directly injure the endothelium of the capillaries and the vascular system in general. So through direct damage, with the impairment of the function, with the inflammatory and cytokine, for example, expression, with the promotion of all the, let me say, wrong development of the vascular system that can impact the pregnancy, that can impact, for example, the brain. So in this case, in the elderly, also the cognitive function. And impacting also on the aging of these subjects that can be more exposed, for example, to cognitive impairments and form of dementia. I saw Luca, but I think that there is a big problem, so I'm continuing. So for the cardiovascular system, an interesting work that was published some years ago was able to highlight how the polymorphism impact also on cardiovascular system. In these trials that was randomized in a very large number of population, so 20,700 adults, folic acid was utilized in the primary prevention of stroke in two different situations. I mean that these people without an history of stroke or myocardial infarction had a treatment with hypertension medication named enalapril, together with folic acid or alone. So participants had like a significant reduced risk of first stroke, but only in the population without the polymorphism. So where the polymorphism wasn't able to impact the efficacy of folic acid. And these large trials highlight how active folate can really impact, because can cover all the people independently of the genetic pathways. And since this polymorphism is not identified by default by doctors and practitioners, but there were just a suggestion when these kind of people has a specific and very strong problems that can be, for example, people with recurrent fertility problems, or for example with very high pressures, so hypertension and so on. Clearly, folic acid cannot cover at least all the population, and so quatrefolic can be a real advantage. Folate is also interesting in menopausal women, where there is a very big change of the hormonal status impacting on a different aspect. For example, postmenopausal women needs vitamins because they can be at risk of folate deficiency, so very general application, but also hot flashes, that is very unlikely symptoms of menopause can receive an help from folate. Folate is a good complement because without risk and side effect, because can help the reestablishing of this cycle that opens also to the production of neurotransmitters that are partially involved in hot flashes problems. Another important point is osteoporosis. Deficiencies in vitamin B9 may affect bone directly and indirectly, and also in this case, homocysteine has a role and polymorphism can have a role. So active folate can be a proper advantage solution for to help the protection in this specific time of women. Cardiovascular, we think that men have a higher risk of cardiovascular disease than women. This is true before menopausal time, but different data today support the fact that after menopause, women undergo a higher risk of cardiovascular problems. And for that, it is important to maintain a right level of homocysteine, and so to avoid this change and to reduce the risk of damage on the cardiovascular system in general. And finally, the depression and mood impairment, since this age is also connected with this imbalance of neurotransmitter production, since the 1-carbon metabolism is supports the production of neurotransmitters, clearly a good folate level and a good working of the folate cycle can support better the production of neurotransmitter and protect from mood impairment and depression. Interesting, for example, here to understand and to discover how low 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate contributes to the mood and the brain health. On the left, for example, you can see the total a graphic where we have the relationship between total plasma homocysteine and the folate present in the red blood cells. This value is real, the measure of the folate availability in our body, and you can see how the homocysteine is reduced proportionally to the availability of folate in this cell. On the contrary, we can see on the right that, for example, the folate in cerebrospinal fluid, that is extremely important because I can give folate present in this part to support the brain function, how this folate is indirectly proportional to the age that is represented on here on the right. So practically during aging, this folate decreases step by step. It's part of the aging. It's a normal development, but what we can do to counteract this effect. So folate can really represent a safe, effective, and a suitable way to help elderly and people. So finally, what is the quatrefolic value proposition for all these application? Quatrefolic, I mentioned at the beginning, is just a salt version of the methyl folate, of the active folate we have in our body, so the 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. We used to say that it is an innovative folate because it's innovative and active, suitable for 100% of the formulation, but also of the people. support more than pregnancy, because folate is really known for this precise effect, but as we saw together, the application follow all stages of human life. We have a unique brand that is patented, is a property of Gnosis by Lesaffre. We played on folate by several years, like working, creating science on that, creating a knowledge, trying to identify this important point to differentiate the supplementation choices that we have. Is the fourth generation, because clearly is the first one is the normal folate, the second one is the folic acid, the third one is the calcium salt, different salt with less suitability in terms of use, in terms of bioavailability. So Quatrefolic has extended benefit. And finally, it is suitable for without metabolization and soluble, so able like also to increase the bioavailability of the ingredients when included in supplements. Interesting to know that, maybe you know, but it is very important to highlight what EFSA, so European Food Safety Agency, and also the European Commission say about folate. We have today different health claims approved and a knowledge on the positive list. So it means that who wants to play on folate can use the specific claims in order to suggest a specific advantage. For example, on immunity, that is a very important trend today, on general on homocysteine management, in pregnancy, in physiological function, in reduction, for example, tiredness and fatigue, on cell formation, so anemia, amino acid synthesis. So it's important because can like move the kind of solution that each player want to propose to the market. And so, in a glance, this is more or less all the most important application today available for Quatrefolic, but take in consideration that there are really different minor application available today under studied. Just some example of what we have on the market. Quatrefolic is well present in different regions in the world. So from pregnancy and preconception to fertility, but also a normalization of homocysteine, so cardiovascular problems. Immunity, standalone in capsules, or for example for mental function and mood in the United States. The first one was in Canada. This one that is a combination of iron and folate, providing like a solution in terms of bioavailability, so using active folate and micronized iron. It was launched in Russia, and part of the study that I told you was published on the combination. The brain focus, for example, so different kind of brain approach. This is, for example, in UK, the company decided to play on the different versions and combinations due to the fact that folate is suitable to be provided in combination with other vitamins or other active ingredients. And energy, so for example, also for sport, we have to take in consideration that red blood cell production, so oxygen transportation, so right functioning of the cells is also present in is important for people doing sport, playing activities. So folate support also this kind of action, preconception, longevity, and so practically it is a good supplements, not only in terms of science but also in terms of application, in terms of opportunities. And Gnosis by Lesaffre, as owner of these ingredients, it's in the first line to support customers and opportunities to develop together the potential new products. So I thank you very much for your attention, and I hope to be that I was clear in emergency situation, and we are here to answer your question.
Lorena, thank you so much for this relevant presentation, and thank you to replace Professor Lucatiano. Oh, great. Professor Lucatiano joined us.
I'm really sorry, as we are undergoing some work in the connection and it's very unstable. I hope you can see me now. I thank you very much, Lorena, for taking my role that she did present very clearly. But if you can hear me and the connection is more stable now, yes. I'm really sorry I was not able before, but I'm available for any question and for any further insight if needed.
Yes, don't worry, Professor Lucatiano, we understand. Je ne vois pas de questions dans le chat. Je comprends que la présentation était très complète et que Lorena a dû répondre à toutes vos interrogations. C'est vrai qu'on a un petit peu dépassé le timing qu'on s'était fixé. Si vous n'avez pas de questions, on peut encore patienter quelques secondes. Et de toute façon, vous allez avoir accès au replay. Et puis, si vous avez des questions plus tard, surtout, n'hésitez pas à nous contacter. On vous répondra de façon la plus détaillée possible. Je patiente juste quelques instants. Et je vais remercier, I will thank you, Professor Lucatiano and Lorena for the participation to present this webinar. Merci Frédéric et merci surtout à tous les participants d'avoir assisté à notre webinar. Nous avons reçu une question. Is Quatrefolic show better stability in dietary supplement with vitamin and minerals compared to folic acid?
Right. This is a rather technical question. I can say that normally I maybe Lorena can answer in terms of formulation, but folic acid it's known to be very stable compared to dietary folates. However, the Quatrefolic as 5-methyltetrahydrofolate is equivalently stable compared to dietary folates, so it's suitable for dietary intervention. As you have seen from the last part of the presentation, it is presented in several multi-complex formula, and so the stability has been tested in different formulation, and it's a valid alternative. In particular, is standardized compared to the dietary intake, which is very important. I don't know if probably Lorena could have some additional data on stability in formulas.
Yes, clearly folic acid is the oxidized form of folate. So honestly, the stability of these ingredients was not under like the evaluation, because the success of this version of benign arrives from the, let me say, stable behavior that has in the formulation. But today, the glucosamine salt can be used in supplements without problems. We have to take in consideration that folate quantities is very few in supplements, so we are talking about micrograms, and so no issues in this sense. So it's not an advancement versus folic acid, because it's not this one like the advantage that the quatrefolic takes with him. It's related on the effect on metabolism and on the advantages in terms of folate availability. The stability is not an issue.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Apparemment, nous n'avons plus de questions. We don't have any more questions. So again, thank you very much, Professor Lucatiano and Lorena. Merci Frédéric, merci à tous les participants, et je vous souhaite une bonne fin de journée et à très bientôt. Au revoir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
À bientôt.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Sorry again.